She wasn't just his mother. She became his mother when no one else would, when everyone else walked away. Evelyn raised Ryan like he was her own blood. She gave him everything she never had, and everything he might have never known: safety, patience, a home filled with warmth instead of shouting. And after all of that, he repaid her by locking her out of her own house. It was a Thursday, late afternoon, one of those quiet, uncertain days when the sky can't decide between holding on to the sun or letting it fall behind the clouds for good. Evelyn stood on the porch in her worn house slippers, her soft blue cardigan draped over her shoulders, the one that still faintly smelled of lavender and fresh laundry. In her hands, a grocery bag, a loaf of bread, 3 cans of beans, and a rotisserie chicken she picked up warm from the deli. Just another simple dinner for a woman who never asked for much. She leaned her hip against the door, like always, reached for her keys, and that's when something changed. The key didn't turn, not jammed, not stuck, it just didn't fit. She frowned, tried again, turned it slower, flipped it over. Her heart picked up, like maybe it was just her nerves, but it wasn't her hands that were the problem. It was the lock. The deadbolt had been changed. She knocked, first, gently, then again, louder, still holding that warm bag like a peace offering, and then the door creaked open. Barely an inch. Not Ryan, not even his voice. Natalie, his girlfriend, peeking out like Evelyn was some stranger who forgot to call first. "Oh, hey, you weren't supposed to be back this early," she said, her eyebrows raised like Evelyn had ruined her evening. "I can't get in the house," Evelyn said, calm but confused. Natalie stepped outside and pulled the door shut behind her with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. She hesitated, looked over her shoulder like she was expecting someone else to step in and take the blame. Then she said it. "I think Ryan was going to talk to you about that." Evelyn's stomach turned. "About what?" Natalie shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "You don't live here anymore." Those 5 words landed like a slap across the face. Evelyn stood frozen, hand tightening on the grocery bag, not even sure what to say. "What did you just say?" she asked, barely above a whisper. Natalie tried to soften it with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "It's just paperwork stuff, nothing personal. Ryan said you signed the deed over a few weeks ago. You remember? All those forms at the kitchen table?" And slowly, Evelyn did. She remembered the documents Ryan handed her, the way he brushed off her questions, told her it was just legal protection in case anything happened, that it was just housekeeping, that he was looking out for her. And she believed him, because he was her son. Her son. Now her hands were shaking. Natalie, clearly wanting no part in the fallout, muttered something about calling Ryan and disappeared back inside. The door closed again, locked again. Evelyn stood there. 1 minute, 5, 10. She didn't knock a second time. She didn't scream. She just turned and walked down those porch steps, the chicken still tucked in the crook of her arm like a baby, as if that quiet warmth was all she had left. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew one thing. She wasn't going back inside. Not now. Maybe not ever, because Ryan hadn't just taken her house. He'd taken something deeper. Her trust, her love, the belief that what she built couldn't be dismantled by a signature, but what he forgot was who she really was. Before the paperwork, before the deception, before Natalie and the fake smiles, Evelyn had been more than just a woman living in a house. She had been a mother, not by accident, by choice. Back in 1996, she was a night shift nurse at St. Joseph's Hospital in Jackson, Mississippi, a woman in her late 30s, resilient, grounded, kind, and quietly grieving the fact that she would likely never have children of her own. 2 miscarriages, 1 round of IVF, and years of sitting in silence, listening to everyone else talk about school pickups and bedtime stories. She had made peace with it, or at least that's what she told herself. Until one night, a little boy was brought into the ER, Barely 2 years old, broken wrist, underfed, pale. His clothes were too big, his t-shirt stained with mustard. His foster mom didn't even stay, dropped him off with child services and left. Evelyn didn't go searching for a child. But sometimes, fate doesn't ask permission. Sometimes God doesn't knock. Sometimes he just places a baby in your arms and dares you to put him down. Ryan didn't speak for days, clung to her uniform like it was the only safe thing in the world, wouldn't eat unless she fed him herself. But something in her made him feel safe. 2 months later, she filed the adoption paperwork. 6 months later, he had her last name. Her friends didn't understand. You're adopting a white toddler with behavior issues, alone? You trying to save the system, girl? No, she always said. Just this one. And she meant it. She gave Ryan everything she never had. A race car bed, Saturday zoo trips, homemade lunches with his name written in Sharpie, piano lessons, swimming classes, inhalers in every bag, tutors for reading. She even taught him to braid hair, using his action figures, just in case he ever had a daughter. She made sure he wrote thank you cards after every Christmas. She never missed a school meeting, never once. But as Ryan grew older, things began to change. By middle school, he started asking why he didn't look like her, why people stared, why strangers always assumed he was adopted. She always told him the same thing, because you were, but that doesn't mean you're not mine. He never fully accepted it. By high school, he pulled away. By college, he only came home for holidays, if that. An overnight stay, a rushed dinner. Hey, mama, he'd say, already halfway out the door with his phone in his hand. Evelyn never said a word, never asked for more. But now he had taken everything, and he was about to learn. Evelyn might have lost the house, but she hadn't lost herself. She kept the porch light on, always, even when it was late, even when no one was coming. She kept Ryan's room just the way he left it. Same posters, same bedspread, same half-finished puzzle on the desk, as if love, even when it was silent, could still be enough. After her husband passed, something shifted. Ryan started showing up again. At first, it felt like healing. He'd mow the lawn, clean the gutters, bring her pills. Sometimes Natalie came too. They'd sit on the porch and talk while Evelyn watched Jeopardy and baked cornbread. She told herself, maybe he's coming home. But what she didn't realize, what she couldn't have imagined, was that he wasn't returning to rebuild. He had come to take inventory. By the time Evelyn understood what was happening, it was already done. Her name was gone from the deed, her trust traded for convenience and control. But a mother doesn't forget, and as Evelyn sat in her car that night, just 2 blocks from the house she once called home, the memories came back fast and sharp. She didn't cry, not once. She parked beneath a flickering street lamp in front of a row of duplexes with crooked blinds and old lawn chairs out front. Her hands never left the steering wheel. 10 and 2, still, frozen. The rotisserie chicken she'd bought hours ago sat cold in the passenger seat. The plastic sagged from the weight of the grease, but Evelyn didn't move. She stared straight ahead, eyes fixed on nothing. Grief doesn't always show itself in tears. Sometimes it sits heavy in the lungs, not just because someone left, but because you realize they were never really there to begin with. She thought losing Leonard was the deepest pain she'd ever feel. 3 years ago, a misdiagnosed blood clot took him too soon. They'd spent 29 years together, met in church, bonded over fried catfish and Sunday scripture. He was quiet, firm, full of dignity. A man whose love didn't need fireworks. It was steady, like clockwork. But this pain, this betrayal, it hit different. The next morning, Evelyn went to the bank. Not out of panic, out of habit, a quiet need to know. Her balance hadn't changed. Because Ryan never touched that money. Because Ryan didn't even know it existed. After Leonard died, The hospital tried to bury the mistake, said the clot was a natural complication. But Evelyn had been a nurse for too long. She knew the signs. She filed complaints, reached out to an old attorney friend, pushed back when everyone told her not to bother. 2 years later, she won the malpractice case, $9.5 million. She never told a soul, not even Ryan, especially not Ryan. She moved it quietly, into a trust under her maiden name, across multiple accounts. It wasn't out of fear, it was wisdom, because money changes people, and peace of mind, she'd learned, is worth more than any approval. That morning in the bank lobby, ankles aching and heart cracked in two, Evelyn saw something clearly. Ryan hadn't just taken her house. He had underestimated her. He thought she was soft. He forgot what she had lived through. She didn't have her home anymore, but she had something better: resources, knowledge, and patience. A weapon Ryan never learned to use. So Evelyn didn't go back. She booked a motel room in Meridian, paid cash, 2 nights, no questions. She needed time, not to react, but to remember. She opened a little notebook from her purse, worn pages filled with old prayers, appointment dates, phone numbers, and reminders to call her cousin in Lafayette. And there, tucked in the back, was a note she'd scribbled years ago, the day the settlement cleared. Don't let money make you loud. Let it make you quiet. Let it buy you time. She smiled. Ryan thought he kicked her out, but he had no idea. He'd just set her free. Freedom isn't easy, though. It's not always soft or kind. Sometimes you have to walk barefoot across fire before you find your footing again. Evelyn was ready. She remembered the first time Ryan placed those papers in front of her. It was a Sunday. She was folding towels at the kitchen table. The oven ticked, sweet potato pie slowly baking. Her knees ached. She knew rain was coming by the way her bones complained. But she smiled through it. Ryan showed up unannounced. She didn't like surprises, but she told herself it was just his way of showing love. He wore a slim-fitted dress shirt, one that looked expensive, tailored, like it belonged to a man she didn't recognize. Natalie followed behind him, barely looked up from her phone. "Hey, Mama," he said, giving her a half hug. "We brought some papers. Nothing serious, just tax stuff, house stuff, cleaning things up. You know, for the back end." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "What kind of papers?" Ryan pulled out a folder, slick, heavy, legal. Trust forms, real estate transfer, power of attorney. "Totally standard," he said, trying to sound casual. "We had it reviewed. Natalie's firm handles this all the time." Natalie spoke up without looking at her. "It's just to protect your assets, Miss Carter. Avoid probate. You'd still be covered for everything." Evelyn looked down at the folder. She hadn't asked for this, hadn't requested anything. "I didn't say I wanted to avoid anything," she said quietly, hands still resting on the towel in her lap. Ryan laughed. "I know, Mama. That's why we're doing it for you. It's just easier this way. If something happens, God forbid, it gets complicated. This just keeps everything in the family." She looked down at the page. The words swam. She didn't wear reading glasses often. She hated feeling old. But what stung the most was realizing her son was talking to her like a client, like a burden, and she signed it anyway, because she loved him, because she trusted him. But trust isn't a promise, it's a risk. And now Evelyn understood. She'd risked everything, but she hadn't lost it all. Not yet. And she wasn't done fighting. She never liked wearing reading glasses. They pinched the bridge of her nose and made her feel older than she wanted to admit. But that day, Evelyn slipped them on anyway, just to see what Ryan had brought over. He noticed. "Here," he said, pushing a pen toward her. "I already highlighted the signature lines. Don't worry about the rest. I went through it all with them already." She paused, her hand hovering over the paper. Something inside her whispered, "Ask questions. say something. Something like, maybe I should have someone else take a look at this. Or, why do you even need power of attorney now? But she didn't, because that was her baby, her little boy, the one who used to cry if she left the room, the one who needed an inhaler every time he got too worked up, the same child who once refused to sleep through the night unless he was holding her hand. And so, she signed, one page after another. Ryan even joked, "You're making history, Mama." She gave a faint laugh, a breath, really, and then the pie timer went off. She stood, turned off the oven, and the smell of sweet potato, cinnamon, and burnt sugar filled the kitchen. It was just an ordinary moment, but it would stay frozen in her memory, because what she didn't know then was that it would be the last time she'd ever sit at that kitchen table as the woman of the house. After that day, the visits changed. Ryan came by less often, but when he did, he brought new people, men in suits, friends he called investors. He waved around phrases like flipping equity and portfolio expansion. He spoke about her home like it was just another item on a spreadsheet, and worst of all, he started calling her Evelyn in front of Natalie. Not Mama, just Evelyn. It stung in a way she couldn't explain. And then one afternoon, while she was watering her begonias out front, she overheard Natalie laughing on a call. "As soon as we close on this place, we can finally get that apartment in Dallas." That was it. Evelyn started packing a bag. Just in case, she tucked away her Bible, her passport, the last photo she had of Leonard, and her small black notebook, the one with the settlement account numbers that Ryan had never known existed. Her body moved slower now, but her mind, it was still sharp enough to know when love had soured. And Evelyn hadn't survived this long to be blindsided by her own son, not without reminding him who she truly was. The breaking point came quietly. One afternoon after lunch, she had just finished vacuuming the living room, a task she still insisted on doing herself, even when her niece told her to leave it be. "Dust doesn't care about your age," she used to say, and Evelyn always believed a clean home was a dignified one. Ryan walked in through the front door, didn't even take off his sunglasses. Natalie followed behind, chatting over Bluetooth, ignoring everyone in the room. Neither one of them said hello. They walked past Evelyn like she was invisible, like she was the help. Then Ryan stopped, turned. "Hey, next time you use the Dyson, can you make sure to empty the canister? We've got some folks coming to look at the place this weekend." Evelyn froze. "People?" she asked. "Just some realtors," he shrugged. "Nothing final. Market research, you know. Gotta get a feel for what the place is worth." She stared at him. "You're selling the house?" He laughed like she was being dramatic. "Not yet. Just exploring options. Gotta be smart." And then he said it. The words she would never forget. "You're a guest now, Mama. It's still your space, of course, but legally, well, you know how it is." Her fingers clenched around the vacuum handle. She didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't cry. She nodded. Once. That night, she packed for real. She didn't take much. 2 dresses, a pair of sneakers, her wedding ring, which she hadn't worn since Leonard passed, but still kept in a silk pouch by her bed. Ryan didn't ask where she was going. Natalie didn't even notice. They thought they had won, but they didn't realize they had just lit the spark. Evelyn checked into a rundown motel near a truck stop on the other side of town, the kind of place with flickering lights and a heater that sounded like it had asthma. The bed squeaked when she sat down, but the silence, it was hers, and it was peaceful. She pulled out her old notebook and flipped to the contact list she kept for emergencies. There it was, Doris, a woman she hadn't called in years, who used to work for a nonprofit that helped elderly women navigate housing disputes. Doris had helped her once when a tenant tried to sue her over faulty pipes. She dialed. 1 ring. 2. Disconnected. She sighed, then remembered someone else, CJ. Clarence Bell, Leonard's friend from the old neighborhood, a retired lawyer with a sharp tongue and an even sharper brain. They hadn't spoken in years, but she called anyway. It rang 6 times before a gravelly voice picked up. "This better be Jesus or trouble." Evelyn smiled. "Maybe it's both." "Evie?" he said, voice softening. "Yeah, it's me. I need to talk to you." And CJ didn't ask why. He just told her where to meet him. The next morning, they sat in a diner off the I-20, the kind of place where the coffee came in heavy ceramic mugs and the waitresses called everyone Hon, whether they were 5 or 85. CJ looked older, gray in his beard, tired in his eyes, but his gaze still sharp enough to cut through a lie. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth. Evelyn smiled. "Good morning to you too." And for the first time in a long time, she felt steady. Not because everything was fixed, but because she'd finally stopped pretending it wasn't broken. And now it was time to reclaim what was hers. CJ took a slow sip of his coffee. Black, no sugar, no cream, just the way Leonard used to drink it. Then he set the mug down and looked Evelyn in the eye. "All right," he said, "tell me everything. Don't skip, don't sugarcoat it, just lay it out." And so she did. She told him about the documents Ryan brought to her kitchen table, the ones she signed without fully understanding. Told him how the locks had been changed without warning, how she became a guest in her own home. She told him about Natalie, the realtors, the way her name disappeared from the deed like it was never supposed to be there. CJ didn't interrupt once. When she was done, he leaned back and let out a slow exhale. "He played you," CJ said, "but he made one critical mistake." "What's that?" Evelyn asked, staring at her napkin. "He forgot who raised him." She looked up, eyes weary. "But CJ, I signed the deed." "Yeah," he said, "but signing under false pretenses isn't legally binding. If he misrepresented those documents, if you didn't have full understanding, then we've got ground. You really think we can take him to court?" CJ gave her a slow grin. "Evie, I could take him to court in my sleep." She chuckled, but it was a tired sound, hollow around the edges. "I'm not trying to ruin him, CJ. I just want my home. I want to look in the mirror and not feel like a fool." He nodded. "Then we won't destroy him. We'll teach him something." They spent the next 2 hours going over every detail, every signature, every date, every half-remembered conversation. Evelyn had it all written down in her notebook already. Decades of nursing made her a documentarian by nature. CJ explained what would happen next, the type of lawyer he'd connect her with, the petition they'd file to challenge the transfer, and what to expect if it ended up in court. Then, Evelyn told him something she hadn't shared with anyone. "I've got money, CJ." He blinked. "You mean savings?" "No, I mean real money, from the malpractice case. $9.5 million. CJ nearly dropped his coffee. "Lord, you're telling me you've been sitting on $9 million and letting this boy play games with you?" She shook her head, eyes lowered. "I didn't want money to change the way I loved him," she whispered. CJ didn't speak right away. Then he reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. "It didn't," he said. He changed, all on his own. Evelyn turned to the window, watching traffic glide past the highway. Her reflection in the glass looked older than she felt, creased, worn, but not broken. "I want to do this right," she said quietly. "No headlines, no revenge, just my name back on my door." CJ nodded. "We'll get it." But before the lawyers, before the filings, there was one thing Evelyn still had to do. One last conversation. Not with the man Ryan had become, but with the boy she remembered. She didn't call first. She knew if she did, he'd dodge the call or let Natalie speak for him. So, she just showed up. Late afternoon. She pulled into the driveway. The lawn was overly manicured. clean but soulless. The begonias she once planted were gone. She knocked once. Ryan opened the door in gym shorts and a branded hoodie, holding a protein shake. His face changed the second he saw her. "Ma, Evelyn, what are you doing here?" She took one step forward, stopping just behind the screen door. "I won't take much of your time," she said calmly. "I just need to say something." He looked over his shoulder, probably checking if Natalie was home, then stepped out onto the porch. "Look, if this is about the house, let me finish." He closed his mouth. "I raised you when no one else would," she said. "Not because I had to, and not because I was waiting for a thank you. I did it because I saw a child who needed love, and I gave him everything I had." His eyes darted to the floor, but she didn't stop. "I gave you years of my life. I gave you a home. I gave up sleep, vacations, my health, my body, and I never made you feel like a guest in it." Her throat tightened. "And you repaid me with a forged signature and a changed lock." He rubbed the back of his neck. "You signed, Ma. It's not like I forced—" "Don't call me Ma," she said sharply. "Not if you don't mean it." Silence. She straightened her spine. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to tell you. I know what you did, and you should know something too." Her voice dropped, but her words were razor sharp. "I'm not broke. I never was. I have more money than you can imagine, enough to buy this house 10 times over." Ryan's expression shifted. First disbelief, then confusion, then something like shame. "I didn't know—" "You weren't supposed to," she said, "because love isn't a transaction, and loyalty can't be bought. But now I know who you are, and so do you." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "I've already spoken to a lawyer. This will go where it needs to go. I just wanted to look you in the eye before it does." He stood frozen, hand hanging limp at his side. "You're suing me?" "No," she said. "I'm reminding you what a home costs." Then she turned and walked back to her car. No tears, no yelling. Just a woman who finally remembered her worth. And people like Evelyn, they don't scare easily. They don't raise their voices. They raise standards. 3 months later, the house was empty. No Natalie, no Ryan, no furniture. The new owner, a retired school teacher from Lafayette, would later say the place felt heavy the first time she walked in, like it held a story too painful to forget. But Evelyn, she had already let it go. Because healing doesn't always look like winning. Sometimes it looks like walking away with your name intact. The court moved faster than anyone expected. CJ worked quickly, and the fraud petition passed through in just a few weeks. The judge didn't hesitate. After reviewing the documents, the timelines, and Evelyn's testimony, she said it was clear Evelyn had been misled, that the property transfer was conducted under questionable and possibly manipulative circumstances. Ryan never even showed up. He'd already left the state. Natalie returned to Dallas without him. When Evelyn heard, she didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just let out a long, quiet breath, like something inside her had finally stopped holding itself together. But she didn't move back into the house. Too many ghosts lived there now. Too many dinners that felt like rehearsals for abandonment. Instead, Evelyn did something no one expected. She took that untouched settlement, the full $9.5 million, and bought 3 modest homes in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Not mansions, not showpieces, just enough. She turned them into safe homes for women over 60, women who had been pushed out, evicted, or quietly discarded by the very families they raised. She called the little program Len's Place, named after her late husband, said it was the kind of thing Leonard would have done if he'd lived long enough to retire. The first resident was Alma, 74, put out by her grandson when she couldn't watch his kids full-time anymore. The second was Darlene, whose daughter sold her house while she was recovering from hip surgery. Evelyn cooked Sunday meals for them all. Sometimes they watched game shows, Sometimes they just sat on the porch and swapped quiet stories about who hurt them and how they survived anyway. Evelyn never had to explain her story. They could see it in her posture, in her peace, calm, steady, unapologetic. CJ still visited sometimes, especially when paperwork got messy. He joked about putting her on a billboard, the woman who turned betrayal into a blueprint. Evelyn just laughed and waved him off. I only did what my mama taught me. When you're cornered, you don't fold. You pray, you plant your feet, and you protect your peace. Because for Evelyn, it was never about the house. It was about not letting a single act of betrayal rewrite the life she built from the ground up. 1 year later, she sat on the back porch of Len's place, a fleece blanket over her knees, a cup of tea in her hand. The sky above Pascagoula was streaked in gold and orange, the kind of sunset that makes silence feel like a song. Alma was upstairs crocheting. Darlene was in the kitchen, humming while she cleaned collard greens. And Evelyn, for the first time in a long while, she was still. Not anxious, not angry, not hurt, just still. That morning, a letter arrived. No return address, just her name, written in a familiar hand she hadn't seen in nearly a year. Inside, a note. I messed up. I see that now. I don't know why I did it the way I did. Maybe I thought I was owed something. Maybe I never really understood what you gave me. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted to say it. You didn't deserve what I did. I hope you're okay. Ryan. She read it twice, then folded it neatly and placed it in the back of her Bible. Not because she planned to forget, but because some things are meant to be remembered without being relived. She didn't write him back. She didn't need to. Forgiveness, to Evelyn, wasn't about letting him off the hook. It was about letting herself go free from the weight of what he did. She had learned something now, something she wished she'd known sooner. You can raise someone with everything in you. Love them unconditionally. Give them years, care, sacrifice, and still lose them. Not because of who you are, but because of who they chose to be. And that is not your shame to carry. Evelyn leaned back as the crickets began their evening chorus. She closed her eyes and breathed in, not just air, but meaning, memory, peace. Because a house is just wood and nails, but a home, a real home, is the love you rebuild from scratch. And she had done exactly that, quietly, patiently, and on her own terms. If this story reached something in you, if it reminded you of someone you've loved, lost, or had to walk away from, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, real love doesn't scream, real mothers don't fold, and real power, it rebuilds brick by brick without permission.